Hello and welcome back to your Pennsylvania Dutch Minute. View request, but also something that I was planning on doing anyway. Out of all the grammar videos that I've done for this series, I have yet to do one on the past tense. And there's been a pretty good reason for that. Doing the past tense in Pennsylvania Dutch is tricky at first and sometimes scares people, and it's going to require memorization, and it's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. But I think now is the time. So we want to tackle that today. So, looking at the past tense in Pennsylvania Dutch, there's one rule that you have to remember, and it all has to do with word order. And if we look here, I have our equation for us. A normal sentence in the past tense will follow this word order: subject, and then either habe or sei. I'll explain that in a minute. Other stuff that you have in your sentence, it would be your objects, either your direct object or your direct object and your indirect object, prepositions, whatever. And then finally, past participle at the very end. The past participle will be the past tense of whatever verb you are using. Again, these might be these might be grammar terms that throw you back to high school English class, maybe not. Or if you took foreign language in in high school, maybe you have it that way. So again, subject, habe or sei, other stuff, past participle. So let's look at this same sentence structure with two sentences in the past tense in Pennsylvania Dutch. So I have the sentence structure there at the top, and we have two sentences, and I color coded them to match the word order. Ich hab ein Buch gekauft. Ich hab ein Buch gekauft. Now that's the past tense for I bought a book. Gekauft is at the end in blue. That's the past participle. That is the past tense form of the verb kaufen, to buy. Excuse me. Here's another example. Is heimgegangen. Is heimgegangen. He went home, or he has gone home. Past tense. Gange is the past participle or the past tense form of gay, to go. And notice both these sentences follow that word order where the verb goes to the end. That necessarily isn't the hardest part of this. I think the hardest part is uh, memorizing the past tense forms of the verbs, because there's no fancy or simple trick that I can say, well, all verbs do this in the past tense, because they don't. They're very different in Pennsylvania Dutch as opposed to English. In English, a lot of times we can just put an ed on the end of a verb, like jump becomes jumped. But that's not the case in Pennsylvania Dutch at all. If you've studied Standard German, you will know that to be the case in Standard German as well. So, yeah, it's tough. How are you going to figure out what the past tense form of verbs, what that is? Well, you have two ways of going about it. I have screenshots here from the online Pennsylvania Dutch Dictionary, which I've shared this link with you before. I'll share it again in the video notes at the bottom of the YouTube page. But when you search a verb, for example, kaufe, to buy, notice that the red arrow is pointing to the word kauft, and before that are the letters PP. That stands for past participle. That's the past tense form. Notice that it's just kauft. When there's nothing in front of the verb, then that means that verb will take habe in our sentence. I'll make sense of that here in a little bit. Let's take another verb. Imagine we looked up the verb to go. We type it into our dictionary, and we'll get the word gay in the present tense. And notice the red arrow is pointing to PP, past participle, is gange. Is gange. Gange is the past participle form, the past tense form. Notice that the word is in front of gange. That is to alert you that this is a verb that takes sei in the sentence. If there's no is in front of it, excuse me, then it will be habe. Standard dictionaries, if you have the actual paper dictionary form, an actual book, they do the same thing. The Beam dictionary does it, as well as I do believe the Stein dictionary does it too. It lets you know that if it's a verb with sai or a verb with habe. So what's all this habe and sai stuff? Well, I want to remind you that if you forget how the verbs habe and sai conjugate, please go back and watch those videos. I have videos for each of those two verbs because they're not normal verbs. They are irregular verbs. So the general rule is if you have to guess, let's say you know the past tense form of something, but you don't remember if it's a habe or a sai verb, the general, and this isn't true 100% of the time, but the general rule is if it is a motion verb, a verb that is showing physical motion or change of state, then it's going to be a sai verb. If it is not, then it is a habe verb. Now that might sound difficult. The best thing for me to tell you is that if you see how if you're using the dictionary, either the online one or a paper one, if is in front of it, then it's a sai verb. If habe is not in front of it, or if sai is not in front of it, then it's a habe verb. Okay? That seems like a lot. Practice, you'll get used to that, trust me. I just came up with 3 quick examples to show you of the past tense in Pennsylvania Dutch to make this make a little more sense. And I kept the color coding the same for our sentences. So let's look at this first example. You ate the pork chop. You ate the pork chop. So if you don't know the word to eat, well, esse, and you look it up, you'll look up in the dictionary, and esse will not have an is in front of it. This is a habe verb. So notice in the Pennsylvania Dutch sentence, we start with the subject do, then we have to have the correct form of habe, which in this case is hushed. Then the other stuff, which in this case is the pork chop, der Rickmesel. And then the past participle at the end, gesse. Gesse is the past tense of esse. Du hast der Rickmesel gesse. Okay? You ate the pork chop. Or you have eaten the pork chop. Either way. The next one, let's say you wanted to say, I flew to Germany. You look up the verb to fly. It's fliehen. And you'll notice in the dictionary, it won't just say fliehen, it will say fliehen, PP, is geflohen. You see that little is, it automatically tells you this is a sai verb. So notice in our sentence, ich, now I have the conjugated form of sai, bin, then the other stuff, in this case, nach Deutschland, to Germany, and then our past participle, geflohen, which is the past tense of to fly. Ich bin nach Deutschland geflohen. And what happens if we want to do a question in the past tense? Well, we learned about forming questions in an earlier video. It's called inverted word order. You just flip the subject and what's normally the verb. In this case, you're going to flip the subject in either habe or sai. In this example, did grandma bake a cake? It's past tense. So we're going to flip the first two. If you look up the verb to bake, it's backe. And you'll notice that in a dictionary, the past tense, the past participle will be gebacke, and it won't have an is in front of it because this is a habe verb. So you would take the form of habe for grandmom, which in this case would be hat die Großmami en Kuchen gebacke. Hat die Großmami en Kuchen gebacke. Did grandmom bake a cake? This might seem like way too much. This is too difficult. There's too much going on. And there are a lot of things going on. Like I said, the toughest part is actually memorizing the verbs. Once you memorize the verbs and you start practicing them, the word order will eventually come together. That's not an issue, and it shouldn't be. The toughest part is by far memorizing the verbs. And remember, when you look a verb up, and here's what I always tell my other students, when you're memorizing these verbs, don't just memorize gange for to go. Memorize is gange. So that'll always remind you that, oh yeah, that's a sai verb. Is gange. Like if you look up the verb, I don't know, drink, it'll look in the dictionary, trinke, past participle, gedrunken. It won't be is, so you don't have to memorize it that way. But like we had the example, gay and fliehen, those are motion verbs. To come is another one, komme. When you look up komme in the dictionary, it'll be pp, past participle, is gekomme. All right? So, or is komme, actually, excuse me, no ge. Just memorize them, okay? And memorize the is plus. And then start playing around, then start practicing. These are tricky at first. Past tense is not easy to get a handle on at first, but through practice, just like anything else, you will get fine at it. And for those of you that studied Standard German, you might have at some point studied or learned about the simple past tense, which is another past form. Well, good news here in Pennsylvania Dutch, we don't do that. We only use this form for the past tense. There is only one verb that does that other past tense form, and I'll do a separate video on that, and that's not difficult. This is hard, I know. Don't give up on yourself, just keep practicing and memorize those past tense forms. You now, at this point, if you've made it through this whole series, you know how to do present tense sentences, you know how to do sentences with modals. I think we did a video on future tense. If I didn't, I'll put one out. And now you can do past tense. I mean, that's covering a lot of the bases of a language that you can speak in multiple tenses. Again, I'll include a link to the Pennsylvania Dutch Dictionary online underneath in case you don't have that bookmarked already. If you have an idea for a future video, please send it to me. I hope this helped you a little bit. It's a difficult subject, but we'll keep doing what we're doing, and you'll get better. Just keep practicing. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Tell your friends about us, and send in those ideas for future videos. Until next time, practice your Pennsylvania Dutch. Practice past tense Pennsylvania Dutch, and mach gut.
Mach's gut.